Welcome to the Buildology Podcast.
I'm Perry.
I'm Randy.
I'm Mac.
I'm Justin.
We're going to
Help you.
Become a buildologist.
Perry, Randy, Mac, and Justin have a combined 100 plus years of experience in the building and real estate industry. And now they bestow that experience to you to help you become buildologists. This is the Buildology Podcast. We've got building down to a science.
I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
Yay. There we are.
We made it.
Oh,
we made it.
This is last minute adjustments on the old podcast.
Adjustment right there.
Little couple adjustments.
What they don't know won't hurt them, right?
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live, yeah.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
Very good, very good. So episode, this is number nine.
Nine?
Well, look at that. You definitely have to scroll now. Like when you go to the channel, you have to find the right episode that gets your fancy there. So 9 of them, not 8 of them in the bag. So this week we've got a pretty interesting topic that we were hashing around earlier, and it's how AI is stealing your real estate job. And we kind of had a conversation based on a product that we are putting together, and we were doing some research, and an interesting topic came up, and we were discussing it back and forth, and we said, well, maybe this is a good topic to bring out on the podcast.
Well, it usually works that way when you're researching to put out, we're working on a new product to introduce at a later time, and when you start kicking over the rocks and figuring out how it fits in, a trend certainly popped up that we thought was worth discussing today. So.
Yeah, I think it's a definitely something most people have not even began to think about. And really, when I started researching it, I said, I think we're at the beginning of an S-curve. And I think after the thing that we shall not be named, everyone's real familiar with what an S-curve is now.
Yeah.
And instead of relating it to that, I'll relate it to a cell phone, right? So everyone remembers when cell phones came out and had the big old brick military phones, and everyone kind of made fun of those.
And the bag phones.
The bag phones, yeah. And then the first car phone, it had a lot of wire behind it. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
But, cell phones back in that day, they were reserved for the rich. And, the movie Wall Street, when they had that big old brick phone there. So then it quickly, really, really quickly, before you knew it, everyone had a phone, right? And that was a very, very quick transition. It's hard when you look back and go, okay, I remember the bag phone and I remember the brick phone, but what was the year that just everyone had a phone? It happened very, very quickly, right? And so that's what an S-curve looks like. It goes from, hey, that's a neat, interesting thing, and then all of a sudden you look around and it's like, that's the only way that it is now.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what's transitioning. When you talk about AI, obviously artificial intelligence, you're talking about getting away from a certain aspect of our business today.
Right.
And what area is that you're talking about?
So when I was doing the research for it, this product that we'll probably do a big rollout at some point in I would say in the next 60 days, tune in for that for sure when we roll it out. But I was kind of doing I typed this into a search engine because this is the way I was taught and brought up in school about the third industrial revolution, right? And researching that, it came up with, well, we're about to enter the fifth industrial revolution. I was like, wow, whatever happened to the fourth one? I don't remember it,
It went by very quickly, didn't it?
It went by very quickly, and basically that was the computer coming in. And so if you basically brought the people out of the farms and you industrialized, right, and you came in, and the fourth is basically the role that computers and data has. The fifth industrial revolution, what they refer to, is artificial intelligence and how we interact with that on a day-to-day basis. And so I started looking at that and I said, well, how does that affect our lives? Like,
Yeah, because we're not talking about self-driving vehicles.
yeah, this is not a
talking about real
conversation
estate.
about that. We're talking about real estate. And so I was like, well, how does that affect our jobs? And as I dug into it, it kind of opened up a door and it kind of scared myself. I said, oh no, it's already here. And we're just at the beginning of the S curve. And people aren't really aware of it because it's just that thing that you hear on the news every once in a while. It's not part of your day-to-day job.
You see it as a TV commercial.
Yeah.
Every day when you're watching TV, you see TV commercials about the different agencies that will buy your home,
Right.
so that you can then buy a new home.
Right. And
And
then
they're taking that realtor out of the equation.
right. And they're automating the process in the background, right? What part of that is the offer. And when you say automate that, that's exactly what you're referring to. There is the AI piece in the background that allows that to happen, is the way the price is determined and came up with.
Yep.
There's an artificial intelligence system that is taking all the data of all the sales that happened and all the things and crunching it extremely quickly, better than an underwriter, a banker, or someone, or a real estate person.
But what comes to mind, and we've talked about this many times, is a CMA,
Mm-hmm.
which we have come to the conclusion is a comparable market analysis.
Community.
So with that being said, if all it's doing,
I'm getting a sign. We're going to be
Yeah.
the ones. We're going with comparable.
comparable.
I'm just
yeah.
reading the cue card over there.
Well, that was in the test. Remember, that was the test you took. But anyway, I bring that up because if all it's doing is crunching the numbers, it's taking something out, Mac, that you are very near and dear to, which is the human factor.
Right.
They're taking it out of the equation.
Right.
And so then you're going to get an offer on your home that is based upon statistical data
Right.
that has no emotional factor in it at all. But at the same time, buying a home is an emotional factor. Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree.
Yeah,
we were discussing that, how important,
Yeah.
the various aspects of all our positions in this industry.
Right.
I think that's what, the interesting thing is what we deal with. Every other transaction that someone does in America, there's very little emotion. Like if someone buys a new cell phone, they have maybe joy, right? Or sorrow that they just spent, $1,200 on a freaking phone.
It's already obsolete by the time they walk out of the store.
Well, let's go to kind of put it in today's perspective. Let's go through a scenario
Okay.
of what we're talking about
Yeah.
without
We-
pulling any entity out and putting it on
Yeah.
the table. So how
So how about we do this? How about we go today, 5 years, and 10 years,
that'll be fine.
right?
How is it happening today
Right.
that the people are starting to be pulled out of the transaction?
Right. So as I looked at it, the first person that I saw coming under threat was the real estate agent. And I think agents out there running around, they're doing their business, nose down, butt up in the air, just working really hard and don't understand that there's a threat at their door. And the threat is essentially venture capitalism. There's too much money to be made on a real estate transaction, right? So what is a real estate total fees and people that you pay just in the transaction side? 10%?
It could be anywhere from 6% to 10%.
But think about just you add title, right? And all the stuff just on the transactional side, right? I think it could be as high as 12.
Could be.
Could be as high as 12%, right? Low, it could be in the 6 range if you,
It's a pretty big spread, but,
But that's
somewhere in there. Yeah.
somewhere that. But let's just say 10 for easy math, because not all of us are Perry over there. So let's just say 10, right? 10%, $500,000 house. We're talking about $50,000 of people working.
Right.
Right, that's what we're talking about. $50,000 of lawyers that are signing off on title work and
Money's
processors
coming
and
out of the seller's pocket.
right. And think about the lender. The fees that they charge for doing their job, and then it's not just not the agent and the broker themselves. There's a lot of other
it's
people
all
in the
aspects.
trend.
It's
All aspects of it, right?
Yeah.
And all of those aspects right there, when I looked at it, are at threat by being replaced by a computer. So you ask yourself that
and
question.
now it's being compounded because of what just happened to us, and
Right.
on a worldwide
Sped
basis,
up.
it's been it's been put in turbocharge because now we can't talk to each other. It's a contactless environment.
Yeah,
So you're talking to a computer every day.
you bring up a really good point. Made me think of something when you said that. So what was supposed to happen in that fifth industrial age is that artificial intelligence was supposed to help us first, right? Before it took our job. It's supposed to be such a use to us that, wow, we've got this cool computer system. Lets me do my job 10 times better, right? And then the computer system gets so much better, then it steals my job, right? But I think with what just happened in the world, eliminated that help us part. I think it just jumped right to the take my job part.
Well, you think about it, you watch TV and they talk about now one of the features and benefits of most stores is that we have contactless environment.
Right.
And that's a benefit.
Right.
That's sad,
Right.
quite frankly.
So in our industry, so let's go back to, so we're talking about 10% of a transaction. We're using 10% at 500,000. That's $50,000 of people at work, right? That make a living off of one transaction. That's a lot of people, a lot of different pieces. So we're talking about mortgage, title, the brokerage.
It's a lot of money per transaction.
That's a lot of money per transaction.
And if you've talked to a mortgage loan officer recently and you ask them, because I have many times, what percentage of your customers have you ever met?
Yeah,
What number do you think it would be?
Man, that's changed in the last year,
Yeah,
right?
That's
So-
that's
yeah.
a moving target right there.
Yeah.
Before the event,
Yeah.
it was less than 10%.
Wow.
Usually it's around
I'd say it's probably less than 1% now.
Well, it's less than 1% now. The
Yeah.
gentleman I asked, who was one of the largest, I think number 3 in the nation, he said 95% of our closings we've never met.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
So when Randy, we bring where we are now, which is interesting about that question is a year ago when I answered that, the starting question is different than I answer it already in 1 year, right? Just look 1 year back of how we'd answer this exact question. It's different than today, right? And so let's answer the question for today because that's what we're doing. It's already impacting our lives, right? Because of the event, it's forced a lot of this to happen. And that's what I mean by skipping over the part where it helps us because it was supposed to be around for a few years helping us. Now the event just skipped it right up to, I think it's nipping at my heels.
Yeah, the wave has crashed on the beach.
Right.
So it is up around
So
your ankles.
today, okay,
We know that the realtor is 6%.
he's 6%.
That's built into the program.
Right. So then
So
you got
that's more
title.
than half of the 10%.
Right.
Title is normally 1%. It's comes off of a table, so it's not an exact, but it's
But
at least
then-
1%.
But think about all the things that happen in title when you start breaking down that commitment about all those fees and stuff.
true.
Those are other people
Escrow
out
fees
Those
and
are
attorney's fees.
there's
and
people in
recording
there
fees.
that
Yeah.
are making money
So
on that,
2%,
right?
2%.
2%,
yeah.
right?
So now
And
you're at 8.
Now look at the mortgage side.
That's at least 1% if there's no points to be
That's
paid at
points in
closing.
it, so
So that
so
could be 2% again.
it could be 2%.
So now you're at
It's-
10%.
You're at 10%, right?
Yeah.
So today, that's what we're looking at. That's what's at threat. A lot of jobs and a lot of things that venture capitalism has said, wait, there's a lot of money to be made in real estate on the transactional side. How do we get in place of that? And that's what if you turn on the TV, the actual, not the YouTube that we're on, but an actual TV, and see commercials there, you'll see what I've found to be termed as iBuyers. So I don't know if that's the actual terminology, but I've seen them grouped up into that thing. And there are multiple ones, like ones that I didn't even know were doing this. Making an offer to buy your house. So they're going after the listing side. Everyone knows that Zillow and, Bot-Trulia and all those guys, that's the buyer side. They're getting in front of the lead. So what we're talking about is the seller side of the transaction now. So that's a lot of money, big pockets coming in to buy people's houses.
And now we know why they can offer 90% of value.
Yeah.
Well, that's
what we
right.
just described.
Yeah, and off camera we were talking about how similar now the transaction for a new home, resale home is so similar to an automobile transaction.
Good point, Mac.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you'll see ads today. So how we're seeing that today is you'll see it with flyers mailed to you to your house.
Right.
Call us today to see how much we'd offer on your home today. You see it as advertisements on social media As you scroll through whatever it is that you look at, you'll see those ads. Find out today what your home is ours. Give us a call. So that's getting on the listing side. That's eliminating the entire transaction of sitting down with a realtor,
Yep.
talking about your listing, doing the CMA, the traditional way, and that is straight up either online putting in
Right.
your stuff, or might be a phone call.
Yeah, you get phone
But
calls,
it's completely-
unidentified caller.
And look at what
And
they
that
offer the
immediately
buyer.
gets a relationship, a listing relationship between yourself and whatever that person is. And then it just comes down to what the value of they're going to put. And that transaction could go just like that.
But look at the fear that they remove if you're a buyer and you're going to sell your house and you have no idea about the real estate market. Let's say you're, I don't know, you grow widgets or something like that, right? You have no idea what to do, and you see one of these ads. You know how much money it costs to run a national ad?
It's a lot of money.
A lot of money, right? And now you're talking about, they're mailing every door out there. They're targeting. I mean, those are big time bucks being spent to grab a listing, right? And the reason they're grabbing it is because the transactional fee is so high.
Yep.
Right? So a realtor's job is that threat on the listing side. And if you don't have listings, how do you get leads? You buy leads, right? So it's forcing you, if you don't have a listing, now you got to buy leads. And that's the other side of the transaction, which they've already cornered. So now you're at threat.
And every realtor you speak with that's a large realtor is going to tell you that their listings are down.
Their listings are down,
substantially.
right?
But the cost of buying the lead is rather high.
It is really high.
It's very high.
So as the listing,
It's a supply and demand.
right, as they take listings out, they force you, how do you get a lead now? If you used to, 10 years ago, real estate agent, right, gets a listing, puts a sign in the yard, phone numbers on there, people drive by, call it. Do people drive by searching for homes now, or do they search online?
Everybody's searching online. I mean, that's
Search
where all the
online,
big
right?
changes are taking place.
No, they're not searching online. They're searching while they're sitting in line picking their kids up.
Yeah,
at school
on their phone,
Yeah.
right? They're in the grocery store and they're on their
Right.
phone searching, right? Not driving around
They're
neighborhoods.
asking alerts to be sent to you when
Yep.
something pops up in an area
Yep.
you're looking to buy. It's all just
Yep.
coming straight through the device.
And here's one thing too that I wanted to bring up, because you talk about listings, you talk about putting a sign in the yard. I was looking at reports recently. I'm a numbers guy. Okay, I look at statistical data all the time, and I saw that in the city of Houston, the third largest city in the United States, the average realtor sells 30% of his own listings.
Yeah.
So when you think about what market they're missing, that's a 70% gap.
Yep.
Yeah.
That the first thing they should do is look at what they're listing and get more knowledgeable and spend more time. Don't just be chasing listings. Make up that 70% gap.
So that's a perfect analogy of why these companies have come in, because what we just talked about was a national marketing budget, right? How many expert marketing gurus do one of these companies have? Like, they have like the best advertising agencies, right? They're targeting the person that's ready to sell right now, right? And now you've got a realtor with his couple $100 a month advertising budget, trying to hit this one little neighborhood. So how do you fight against, Goliath?
But put it in.
The David versus Goliath.
Right, the David versus
Okay, so
Goliath.
think about it though. Be David in a Goliath market. Be a target shooter. So know that you've got what listings you've got. Do the best job you can to make sure those listings sell.
Right.
Because as I went through the data, the top realtors that are the largest realtors with the most listings, they're in single digits on their capture ratio. So think about what they're missing. Right. So be good at what you do. Be the David in the Goliath market so that you're out there shooting accurately.
So before we move to 5 years, let's clearly identify the threat right now. So these big companies, iBuyers, that's what we're just going to phrase them until we, like the cat name.
Yeah.
We come up with
Cat
a
is
different
back, by the
name.
way.
So we're grouping all these deals in there, and I'll throw some out there, like Redfin. There's one offer. Let's see, Open Door. Offer Now. Rooftop was another one. Another one.
Knock is one.
Knock is one.
Knock was one.
Yeah.
Just watch TV. You'll see.
Yeah,
the
watch
commercial.
TV,
They're
right?
on every night.
So I mean, look at the advertising budget. If you add all those, I mean, that's billions of dollars.
big money.
It's big money,
and they're
right?
relatively recent on the scene.
Yeah, 5 years ago, we're not having this conversation 5 years ago.
Right.
1 year, I'm not even sure we're still having this conversation. Like, we might have heard about them coming, but not the impact, like seeing it every day on TV.
Right.
Well, let's just say you've listed like 6 that we're seeing now.
Right.
So 5 years from now,
Right.
what does that look like?
Okay, 5 years from now, I think there's maybe 3 of them. So there's 3 guy. We got a question out there. So
It's about a foundation, looks like.
yeah. Okay, we'll come back to that one. Let's wrap up 5 years, and then we'll come back to that question right
Yeah,
here.
it's a good question.
Okay, so 5 years from now, what I think you see, just like we saw on the buyer side, the top guys will buy each other, right? And
So there'll be mergers.
They'll
There's gonna be
condense,
acquisitions of the
right? As they
companies.
gain more market share, the top guy is just going to buy that guy, and he's just going to be the dominant player, right? And so you'll have the dominant player out there. So I think there'll be less of them, but it'll be significantly more of our market, to the point where they've cornered the market, and it's very, very impactful on a realtor day to day.
They're going to be even more powerful than they are.
Even more power, right? You haven't chased the realtor out, but you've given them such a tough thing to fight against. Like, you're really on the losing side of this in 5 years, right?
and
You're swinging up for sure.
And you don't have to look too far to see how much power high tech has in our lives today.
Right. And then in 5 years, throw the automation on it. So now they're really, really controlling the seller side. They have a lot of influence on the buyer side. And now that AI of that offer is starting to make the transaction a little bit easier, and you're completing more things online in 5 years. It's just getting a little bit more and more the way you do it.
You know, and I can tell you something I learned recently, and of course, I'm the least knowledgeable of technology at this table. But there's something called geofencing that was introduced to me recently, where when you walk into a certain perimeter of a job site, automatically it picks up the information from your cell phone and begins to notify you and talk to you and advertise to you just because you've entered their space. So again, you mentioned earlier, everything you do on your phone is tracked by somebody.
Right.
All of that information being given to a marketing institution, and you just get close enough to a house that you weren't even thinking about looking at a house, but all of a sudden you get notified there's a home for sale on that block.
And think about the so on that 5 year mark, though, move in the transactional fee over to the lender side, right? Right now, you have an underwriter that makes a decision on a loan. 5 years from now, AI system, who makes a better decision on a loan?
I honestly think that 5 years is far too.
Oh, it's
far in
happening
the future.
today.
It's happening,
Yeah.
It's
right
happening
now.
today. Yeah,
Right.
they'll tell you we have automated underwriting.
But
They
right
tell you
now,
that
there's a
up front.
person that interacts with that system, right? Now you move the transaction online, and 5 years from now, does that person at the bank really handle that part of the
I
transaction
can tell you
anymore?
today that it's happening already, because I know mortgage lenders that I've spoken with recently that say, we just plug in all your data, we do the input,
Right.
it tells us whether you're approved or not.
Right.
Now, if you're not, or it gives us any indications of what could be changed, we have to dive into it. So they're still working with it,
Right.
but they get a decision right away.
Right. So,
Today.
I also see
5
that
years,
happening.
5 years, it's just at 5 years, I think it's becoming more entrenched, right? So the answer to 5 years from now is all the stuff that we're talking about is just like super ingrained. People are still doing their jobs. They're still doing they're on the S curve, but the threat is like in front of you. Like, you're looking at it going, wow, how do I compete against this? Right. So that's fast forward 10 years. So, and the reason I did this experiment is because, we're all a little older here. we're on the backsides of our careers. And, a lot of the people that we know are in our age bracket. But when we were kind of developing the product, we're on YouTube, we're reaching a younger audience. And I was thinking about that 32, 33-year-old guy that's a realtor. He's coming out here and he's swinging for the fences, and he's wanting to learn how to be a professional in this industry. He needs a good solid 30 years in this industry, like we've had, right?
Yep.
We've enjoyed 30 years in this industry. And our 30 years isn't going to be the same as their 30 years. And so what could we do to help them, look at this right now? As we could use our experience, and we can look out in front and say, hey, all that technology you guys are using on that cell phone, it's a threat. Get ready to fight it. You're going to be fighting your phone. That's what it's going to come down to.
What we can do also, and Mac addresses this all the time, is there's still a people factor. So what we can do is, no one teaches our children today how to interact with adults, how to interact with humans other than us, the older generation. So spend more time with those younger people and say, use the technology to your advantage. Get information quickly, but don't ever lose sight of the fact that it's still human factor involved. People. It's still a people business.
Because we're going to keep losing that contact. I mean, as we move forward. I had a conversation yesterday with an appraiser that was saying they're feeling the threat already, that AI is going to be taking over.
Yeah, his job, his job's gone real quick.
But coming from the other side, who, including the four of us in this table, doesn't mind a more seamless, easy transaction on almost everything that you do?
Everyone expects
everything you do is a seamless, easy. So it makes sense that that's come to our industry.
Right.
We have been this industry has been the rock solid. Haven't changed since the 50s, technically, on how everything's put together.
Right.
Construction hasn't changed much, materials and technology changed, but how you put it together has not changed.
No.
But the transaction side, it's really just going along with the times, with the way technology is helping that move forward. And so you have to adapt to survive, essentially.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of the car buying experience,
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah. That was a conversation my wife and I had when we bought the Tesla. Like, I didn't interact with a person at all. And that was one of those things when I was researching this, I kind of reflected back. I said, the second largest purchase that an American makes, their automobile, and I didn't interact with any. I mean, I got a loan on it and I didn't interact with anything.
Right.
Anyone.
So what you're forecasting is Carvana becomes Homevana.
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
Did you write that down first?
No, it
You
just
better
came to
patent
me.
that
It
one,
just
right?
came to
You better
me.
patent that one.
But you can't put a home on a revolving stage, at the
But
parking
here's
lot.
so look at that appraiser, right? So let's go 10 years and I'm going to paint this picture and you guys tell me true or false. How about that? How about this? Okay.
Go for it.
We're 10 years from now. Okay. And I'm in a volume builder neighborhood. Okay. I bought from one of the big guys, one of the top 10 guys.
Right.
Okay. So my plan exists in other places in the neighborhood with my features. So we're going to make this kind of this easy right here. And we just don't go custom home. So I decide to sell, right? Because I've got a new job in another city and I liked my house, and that builder also builds houses in that city. But so do some of the other builders that I'm familiar with. So I'm moving there. I got to sell my house, right? So I pop up my cell phone because I'm not using a laptop to pull this off. It's all catered to you on your cell phone, right?
Right.
Okay. So it's all catered to you on your cell phone, and you're searching a Zillow, one of these big guys, right, for a house.
Whoever's left,
right? And so you click on one, and they say, do you have a house to sell? That's the obvious question that's going to pop up. And you say yes, and you give it your address, okay? And a computer crunches all the statistical data of every house that's ever been sold and takes the trends of what the stock market's doing and your buying habits. And here's the scary thought, right? This is where it really gets scary. Is you're gonna put some other additional information in there that's gonna ask, like, where'd you go to college and where's your job, and it's gonna start calculating your future earning potential right then. Okay, it's gonna qualify you for the next house and give you an offer on this house, and it's all gonna happen right now. And all you got to do is hit the button and say, I accept the offer, and you can buy and sell your house all in one transaction right there.
Yeah,
I'll go one step further, because I thought of this years ago, and it's happening already today, and I think it'll evolve even better. Is the house you're going to buy isn't built yet? You said earlier you still have to build the home, but it's designed, and you can take a complete virtual tour of it without ever leaving your house.
Yeah,
and that happens today. You can do that today on your phone. You can get a virtual.
But what if you could order? So let's say you knew you're transferring jobs in 6 months, right? Like they come to you and say, hey, I'm going to take this new position right there. And you could order that house custom built from the builder too, because you know your house is sold. You already have the offer for it. And you know when you're moving in, and you know when you're starting. The convenience factor is like on 11 for that transaction. And all you got to do is hit the button on your phone. And the transactional side, the loan, everything is going to be done right there. So what person do you have to interact with in our industry in that scenario?
And I'm telling you, that can all happen today.
It could.
Not 10 years from now. You can do everything you just described
Right.
from your living room today.
So my theoretical thing of 10 years, is it 6? Is it 7? Is it 5? Is it 4?
But what is interesting is that scenario you just went through is exactly the same thought that has happened on every real estate transaction since the dawn of time, only that's been done by people over a period of time.
Yeah.
When you sit down with a real estate agent or a loan officer, they're asking all those questions.
Right.
They're looking at everything that they can look at, but technology's pushing it to where all of that's being fed into super chips.
Right.
And it makes that decision right then. It takes the person out of it.
Think about that appraiser that you said, Mac, right? So the appraiser, who would come up with a better job of what an appraiser. People get this one wrong all the time in our industry. They think an appraiser assesses value of the house. No, they measure level of risk for the bank.
That's what it is.
It's the amount of
That's right.
It's amount of
loan amount. It's
right.
a loan amount.
They're letting the bank know whether this is a good loan.
This is a
make or
good
not.
loan, and
Right.
does the person have enough money? In this theory, people think that it's a value, like
No,
the
it's a loan
because
amount.
it says appraised value, and people go, "Oh, that's the value of my house." No, that is not the value of your house.
It's the
Okay,
amount of money the bank will loan you.
so
on
that guy's
house.
job in
correct.
5 years, I don't even think exists. Okay, what does it better? A supercomputer, all values, okay, ever done, or this guy that you can barely get on the phone and running
Now
around
that you've
taking
got-
pictures.
Now you've got drones, you've
Drones,
got everything else out there.
Look at you. Go get go
Google
to
Earth
your go to the appraisal district, right, and fight your taxes. They pull it up on a satellite, right, and they look at that. And the appraisal district's already doing it. So why wouldn't the guy that the bank uses just do it the same way the appraisal district does it?
It's already in the works right now.
It's in the works, right? So
But it's frustrating. You mentioned banks. All of us have banking involvement. Ask a bank to go outside of their farm area, and they'll say, "I can't."
right.
Well, why can't you? I'll take pictures for you. I'll carry my iPad. I'll put a drone, whatever you want to do.
because that's the way we've always done it.
That's right. And they will not do that.
But
It's
think of
amazing
all
to
the
me.
lenders that when you go to 10 years, we're in that 10-year scenario. Think this: who's providing the money for that person's loan when you have such a statistical advantage of that supercomputer on that person's ability to repay a loan? Right. So if you unleash AI on all your buying transactions, where you went to school, what your job pays, and all that stuff, it's going to crunch it 1,000,000 times better than your local banker. So how does your local banker compete against that level of AI? So he can't make the loan because the system is going to know down to the 1/64th of a percent of what level of risk you are, right? When
But
this
the
guy's got his pen and paper going, I don't know, I really liked him.
The banks will use.
They're great people.
They're great
The
people.
banks will use that software though to make the decision.
But a little
Otherwise,
bank,
a
big
little-
bank,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But a little bank, your community bank that people go and get a home loan from, I don't think they can compete against that big system because they can't afford it.
Let's take this back a step. Let's go back. Okay, I'm a realtor. I'm out there today in today's market.
Right.
So I really haven't paid much attention to this threat that's in front of me.
Right.
So what do I do?
So that's why we're developing. That was really the thought and brainchild behind this course and this consulting package that we're going to come up with is basically how to stay alive in this industry and how to forge ahead. If you're 25 years old, how can you still make a living in this industry and retire with a level of wealth in the industry and make a future for yourself and your family?
Right.
Because that's what's really at threat is if you can't identify the threat, right? It's kind of like the Sun Tzu. You got to know who your enemy is,
Right.
right? And if you're not prepared to fight the enemy and not educating yourself of what threats at your door,
Yeah.
And you've got to separate yourself from mediocrity also. Don't be
Yes.
that average. Don't be that
Right.
30% capture ratio. Be a 60% because you're investing the time. You said yourself, Mac, be out, do some boots on the ground. Go walk the neighborhood, know the neighborhood, be invested in that property, and make the deal happen.
And,
Yeah, I think
and be
that-
prepared to think outside the box.
Top 1% always survive. Top 5% always survive. So if you're at the top of your game and you understand the market and you understand what you're doing, there's always a place for you at the table, right?
And be creative. As you said, get outside the box. Don't do things just because we used to do it that way.
Right.
Don't be afraid
It's
to try
changing so
something different.
fast. We had the luxury of because of our industry was so slow. I mean, you were speaking about that earlier, Randy. Like our industry did stuff the way they did it for the last 10 years forever, right? And there was like, we're not changing. But look what technology is. It's like it's bashed down the door and said, hey, we're here. And, that was usually another industry that we didn't have to pay close attention to.
Right.
You would think technology would have created by now a software package system that you could drop your building system in and it would work. That's still not
still
there.
doesn't exist.
Still does
right?
not exist.
Yeah, on the actual physical construction side, because it is off-site manufacturing, the good thing is that I think there's plenty of jobs there. We were talking about that. Mac, does the salesperson exist? I think he still exists. His
think he
role
does.
changes.
Yeah.
I
right.
agree. I
It's
agree.
more handling the customer.
I can tell you this: some of the builders in Dallas I've seen have kiosks now
Yeah.
in the sales office.
Right. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
that when I was
Instead of a
researching
human.
that, there was actually a little robot that does a little home tour and has a little screen. I want to say
Now you're scaring me, Justin.
no. I'm serious.
I've seen it.
It was
I've
on the
seen
new.
it.
It was.
Yeah, that's
It was
true.
in
I've seen that.
No,
Dallas.
I don't doubt you.
It was on the Dallas News.
Yeah.
It was a Dallas News report that I was researching it, and it was a news report in Dallas. And one of these companies up there, they just have this little thing, and it's got a little face on it, and it takes you around and does the whole little tour.
But think
for
about
you.
this.
It-
What happens when one of those large builders partners with one of the iBuyers
Oh,
and they
man.
come up with some kind of agreement between the two?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
It's already happened.
It's happened.
It's happened
right?
recently.
It's
Yeah,
happened
it's happened
recently.
recently.
The really good news is that we've already been aware of it,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got some great news to share with a lot of the real estate agents out there.
Yeah, I think so. 60 days from now, I think we'll be able to share all the information that we found and really kind of uncovered. And I think it's going to be like mandatory. Like if you are not retiring out of this in the next 5 or 6 years, it's going to be like kind of, how you have to do continuing education as a realtor, right?
Yeah.
And you go to those classes and they're like, oh, come on, this is the same stuff that I've
MCE. yeah.
done for the last 30 years. Talk
Well,
about something not changing.
One thing that we don't talk about on this show a lot is it's kind of getting into that is, today, currently the four of us build, market, sell, work with buyers. We have projects going vertical. We have big deals we're putting together. We have huge clients that we still work with to sell to on our individual day jobs.
Right.
Well, putting all of that together is starting to bubble up into something that's
Yeah.
what we're working on and
Right.
what you're alluding to. And
Right.
all of that experience and thought and foreshadowing is coming into something really cool, I think. So be excited
It's
about
going to
that.
be exciting
Yeah.
to share with people. And, maybe this episode we'll be able to look back at episode 9 as the one that,
The one that
kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit. But, I researching all of this really just opened my eyes to it. And as I opened my eyes, I was like, uh-oh, I'm a little bit scared here. So we better be able to react.
Yeah.
And let's use it to our advantage.
Right,
We're
you can.
smarter. The 130 plus years of experience at this table
Right.
knows how to use the technology, but also how to outsmart the technology
Right.
and to still get people what they want. To
There's
listen to what
there's
they want.
weaknesses anytime someone develops something that is not from within your industry, and I say that's big tech coming in. They're playing in our backyard, right? But we know what they don't know.
because they've never built a house.
They've never built a house.
And they probably have never sold a
They
home.
never
before
sold
either.
it. So, all their strengths with pocketbooks and marketing and all that stuff doesn't mean it's invulnerable.
Yeah.
It's
I
not-
think
it's
I
not
think through
flawless.
through relationships with people that still supersedes
Yeah.
information flow before it hits the tables of that big tech stuff.
Yeah, because you are talking about emotion in our
Yeah.
industry, which like what we were talking about with the iPhone, you don't have that much emotion when you buy a phone, but you do when you buy a house,
Yeah.
right?
That's
so
still
there's
an emotional purchase.
still
But,
emotional purchase.
You know, another thought that just occurred to me too, that as AI, artificial intelligence, starts to take over more and more of our lives, I think it's going to be even more important that those that are going to survive, and not survive but thrive in that type of situation, are going to be the people that tap into the knowledge of their friends, mentors, people that they know.
Yeah.
It's going to become even more important.
Well, it's just time to be creative, and
Yeah.
we all know we love to be creative, so
Yeah.
That's
that'd be
it.
fun.
Yeah.
Well, do we have any time to answer?
Well, I
the
was
questions?
reading that question. Do we have time?
Yeah, we
Okay.
have time. So,
So
the question
give us-
was,
yeah, what was
let me
the
scroll
question?
down because it came in several pieces on our side right here. So, hi guys, glad to catch you live. One question: foundation slab was poured 10 days ago and already has 3 cracks that go along the entire surface and go vertically down the sides as well. Is it normal for post-tension slabs after stressing or not? I am from Houston. Builder says that it is a hydration crack even on the sides, but it's even now, I think is what he meant, up or down, movements in the sides of cracks. As usual, great show. Thanks for it. Keep going. Okay, so basically a surface crack.
Yeah.
You know, I think
Yeah,
I've answered this question.
That's in Randy's
Well,
wheelhouse.
You're talking about, so a small history lesson on foundation. So typical foundations you'll see are the monolithic slabs, and those are slabs we don't pour here in the Houston area, but that's a lot of concrete and a lot of steel, and those kinds of slabs are designed to not move. Like, so if you get lift on one corner, that corner is going to feel some stress because that steel keeps it tight. So post tension is less steel and more cables running through. So after a slab is poured, after a certain time, stress is put on those cables and it locks that slab in. And since we have a lot of clay in the Houston area, and when clay gets wet, it swells. And when clay gets dry, it shrinks. And those are drastic movements in that soil. So a post-tension slab is designed to be able to move with that. That's why it's done.
also
It
known
kinda
as a
moves.
floating
It's
foundation.
a floating foundation. So
Right.
it kind of moves with that. But think of it this way. That doesn't answer that question. So when you pour a slab, the concrete's warm. And depending on weather outside, would depend on how fast it would cure. But it takes quite a while for a slab to completely cure. And it cures from the top down. So as it cures, it's releasing moisture because that's how it dries. So as it cures from the top down, moisture that's left in the bottom has got to get out somehow. And what it does, it forces these little fissure hydration cracks is a great way to put it. And what you're seeing is that foundation is naturally releasing its moisture. So surface cracks on a post-tension slab recently poured are not a big deal. The general rule of thumb, and you'll see this written on a lot of warranty packets, is if you find one that you can kind of stick a nickel in, that is one to be concerned. So walk around the slab, kind of give it that nickel test. But if they're just normal surface cracks and they'll run from one end to the other, that's a natural occurrence in the curing process of a post-tension slab because it's that moisture has to get out and it's forcing itself out through the top.
Yeah, and all the trades are used to dealing with it because, you know, a lot of times when you do tile on top of it, they'll use some
They'll use a float.
and stuff like
Underlayment.
underlayment to cross about. They're just kind of more of a nuisance than anything because you get them on the patio, they're just unsightly. But in the main part of the house, you'll never even know it was there, and it doesn't defeat the strength of the slab at all. So
It doesn't necessarily mean it's a failed foundation.
Yeah,
No,
that's
not at all.
Not at
No.
all. It's a natural curing pure process of concrete. If you have concerns and they look really wide to you, like I said, the nickel is always the one that we use. If you could put a nickel in it, that is something to bring up as a concern. But 99.9% of the time, you don't. It's just a surface crack, and that's natural.
I always related it to like baking a cake in the oven,
Yep.
right? And so the outside gets done first, and it cracks open to let that moisture in the cake out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the same thing. As
I
that.
always, since we live in Houston, I always did it. If you go to a Tex-Mex restaurant and you order a bowl of queso,
yeah,
and it's
there you go.
warm,
Yeah.
as it cools, it has
Yeah.
that film on top,
Right.
but it forms a little crack because the steam underneath is trying to get it. That's exactly what it is. It's
Right.
just moisture is naturally coming out. It's a natural process of the curing process.
And if you're concerned about it failing too, one thing you can always look at is run your hand across it because the two sides still line up.
Yeah.
So they're still
Yeah.
smooth. If they shift and you run across and you've got a step down in
that's
it,
something to
that's
be
different.
concerned
That's
with.
something to
Right.
be concerned about.
And
But if it's
chances
still
are
smooth,
you're going to have a greater gap than a nickel at that
that's
point.
very
Yeah,
true.
that's true.
Very true.
And as it warms up outside, it's more prevalent than it is in the
That's
winter
true.
time
Yeah,
too. So,
colder-
Which is why people put on the foundation in the summertime. They'll put a sprinkler.
Well, that's why you also see during the middle of June that if you go to a production neighborhood, they pour concrete at 3 in the morning.
Right.
Because you can't pour it at noon because it's too hot.
Way
it
too
cures
hot.
too fast.
Right.
Makes
So that's
all
why
the
they
neighbors
pour it.
really happy
yeah,
about that.
pour it really early in the morning because you can't pour it at 2 in the afternoon because it's already too hot. The air's too hot.
Yeah. So,
So
guys,
I hope that helps.
I think it does. So I think that wraps up the amount of time that we got in the show. So I think it was a good episode.
Yep.
Great.
Good one. So next week, I think we touched on a topic that Perry had for next time for show number 10. Magic number 10. We're going to get double digits next
That's
week.
right. Wow.
That'd be great.
Put it on 2 hands.
2 hands. All right. Sounds good. Well, appreciate everyone tuning in.
Welcome back to the cat.
Oh,
Cat
yeah.
made back
There you go.
home.
Cat is home.
We already
back
was
home.
in Vegas for a weekend, so he came back.
Keep the questions coming, too.
Yep.
Keep the
We
questions
appreciate it.
All right. See you guys next week.
Thank y'all so much.
All right. Thank you.